This video was made possible by the Eliason Group, an Agile consulting service. You can locate the video under Follow Us, then select Recent Videos on YouTube on the agilenewengland.org website.
So we're working on getting those worksheets out to everyone. The last thing that I hope that you leave with is some activation energy to apply this framework to the rest of your life, because I think that activation energy is the thing that holds me back from doing a lot of stuff. So hopefully this will get you energized and excited about tackling the challenges that you're currently facing. Sound good? Great. Okay, so my journey towards to powerlifting doesn't begin with powerlifting, but as someone who is always looking at being the better version of myself, I have one too many hobbies. This hobby I picked up about 3 years ago when I started studying Krav Maga. If you are not familiar with it, it's an Israeli self-defense and fighting technique that is taught by the Israeli defense system. And I had been doing it for about a year. I was really proud of myself when I was able to pass the level 1 exam, and then I moved on to learning level 2 curriculum, which is basically just, harder stuff, doing a lot more sparring with more well-trained opponents, things like that. And I was falling behind. I was having a really hard time actually picking up these new techniques I was learning, and it was getting to be really frustrating. And so I sat back and thought to myself, well, what can I do to actually get better at this thing that I feel really passionately about? And I came up with a big crazy goal, which was to be so strong. I wanted to be the strongest version of myself so that I could progress in this other thing that I was really interested in. Now, luckily, at this point, I had been an Agile coach for long enough to realize that this so strong goal was way too big for me to actually do anything with. And I was going to need to whittle it down and actually refine it and turn it into something that I could actually do anything with. So I dug around in my Agile toolkit and remembered Clay Christensen's Jobs to be Done framework. Is anybody familiar with it? A few people? Yeah. If you're not, it's no big deal. Essentially, the Jobs to be Done framework is a way to encourage people that are trying to solve user problems to think about the problems that those users are facing by identifying the situation that a user finds themselves in, the motivation that that particular user has, and the outcomes that that user is trying to achieve. So I took this giant, so strong goal and narrowed it down into something that was a lot more tangible. So what I came up with was that my goal is, or rather, the situation I find myself in is that during my self-defense class, I have difficulty executing certain techniques. I would like to be able to pass the level 2 test in 2018 for my Krav Maga studio. So over the next year, the outcome I would like to see is that I would like to improve my overall strength and stamina so that I feel really comfortable with my sparring and my groundwork. So this made a lot more sense to me after I turned it into something that was a little bit smaller and more well understood. So now it's your turn. I would like for each of you to, using your worksheets, think about a challenge that you are currently facing and try to make it something that's important to you, something that's meaningful. If you don't care about it, you're not going to want to work on it. So think about something either in your personal life or in your professional life that you would like to make a change. My one sort of disclaimer is that while you are starting this continuous improvement plan individually, at some point in the evening I'm going to ask you to break off into pairs or small groups. So the thing that you work on should be something that you're comfortable talking about with another person in this room. So that's my one disclaimer, okay? So go ahead, take a couple minutes and start writing down a challenge that you're facing, thinking about the situation that you have, the motivation that you have, and what outcomes you would like to see. Okay, we'll call that done. All right, now's the toughest part of the evening. I am wondering, okay, out of everyone in the room, how many of you came up with a professional challenge? Okay, great. Now, one of those people with a hand up, or if your hand was up, I need a volunteer to be willing to share your goal and also be my guinea pig and continuous through line for the rest of the talk for the night. So you're not only volunteering for right now, but you're volunteering for the next hour, basically. So, but it's easy, right? Because right now all I need you to do is tell me your goal. So who's feeling brave? Yes, excellent. Okay, what did you come up with for your goal? And also, what's your name, please?
My name is Julie, and my goal is to get a great new business analyst, business intelligence hybrid job role.
Got it. Okay. And if I asked you to break it down from situation, motivation, outcomes, how did that read
So
out?
that's the situation.
Excellent.
The motivation is to continue to grow my skills in a terrific culture with a nice short commute.
Yes. Yes. All of the above. Excellent. And what are the outcomes?
Happily employed in a new role, expanding my BI capabilities where I fit extremely well.
And I'm sorry, you said BI capabilities?
Business intelligence.
Excellent. Thank you so much for clarifying. Awesome. That's a great goal. Thank you for being brave, and I can't wait to hear more about what's coming up next. Okay. So, we've got goals. Now becomes the slightly more difficult part of picking our programming poison, however you want to look at it. Something that was really interesting to me when I started getting into the world of fitness, and I probably shouldn't have been surprised by this, but I was sort of appalled by it in the long run, is that basically everyone is willing to take your money, right? They'll take your money for anything. They will sell you basically anything, coming from a place of preying on your fears or the things that they think you need. And when I looked around, I was like, oh man, I kind of see that in the Agile world sometimes too, right? Like so many people that you talk to, I have this great program, it's gonna solve all of your organizational problems, just give me all of your money and I'm gonna fix it, 3 months, no problem. So it got to be sort of overwhelming, right? And what I figured out was that I needed to understand more about what the specifics understand what the specific things I needed for my programming to be before I could even start considering finding the right program for me. So what I did was I revisited my goal and I pulled out just the most important information, right? Took a look at the keywords and I turned it into a list that looks a little something like this. So for me, things that were really important were that I wanted my program to fit in a year-long time box, give or take. I wanted to prioritize strength, stamina, sparring, groundwork, and specific things associated with that. Now, when you take a look at that list, does that remind you of anything that you've encountered before? Some nods. Go ahead and shout it out if you have a thought.
All the time.
Acceptance criteria.
Acceptance criteria, yes, exactly. And something that I love to do when I'm working with teams and when I'm coaching teams, when they're trying to come up with really solid acceptance criteria, is not only think about the things that are important to them, but also to flip it around and think about the things that are not important to them. So these are the things that were not important to me. Quick fixes, weight loss, aesthetics, anything that's outside of the level 2 curriculum that I was particularly interested in. So now it's your turn. Again, when you go ahead and take a look at the situation, motivation, and outcomes that you came up with, start circling the keywords, the things that are sticking out to you that feel like they're the most important, and go ahead and start putting together a list of your must-haves, the things that your program needs to have in order to actually help you towards your goal. If you're having difficulty with that, then maybe start with the things that your program doesn't need to have, things that are not important to you in order to achieve your goal.
Can you go back to the example?
Yes, I can. There you go. Great. Julie, can I pick on you again? Thank you. And if you don't mind just reminding us again of what your goal is, you don't have to go through the whole thing.
Get a great new business analyst, business intelligence role.
Excellent. Okay, so what are the things that are most important to you?
So a company, I feel passionate about what they do,
Mm-hmm.
a reasonable salary and compensation plan.
Mm-hmm.
I fit with the team. I'd like to do it within a 4-month time box
Mm-hmm.
and less than 25-minute commute.
Nice, nice. Okay, and did you have anything on your do not want list?
Yes, a big project management component
Mm-hmm.
and long commute and salary.
Anything more than 25 minutes, I
Right.
feel you. Yeah, great. Excellent. Okay, awesome. All right, so now that I have my list of things that are important to me, things that are not important to me, I was still sort of feeling like I needed some assistance, right? I've never, up until this point, entered into the world of strength training whatsoever, and it was a little intimidating, to say the least. So, being a coach, and being totally biased, it made sense to me to find a coach that could help me do this thing that I wanted to do. And funny enough, when I was testing this talk with smaller groups before I arrived with you guys today, an interesting point of feedback that somebody gave me was, well, are you saying that continuous improvement can't happen if there isn't a coach present? And my answer is no. I think continuous improvement can happen whenever, wherever, as long as you yourself are committed to it. But what I have found when I took a long, hard look at my past and different changes that I have tried to make and implement in my life is that I had a much higher success rate and felt generally happier about the process when I was surrounding myself with people that cared about me and were invested in the thing that I was doing as well. So from my perspective, and in my opinion, I think one of the best things that you can do for yourself when you're thinking about continuous improvement and making a change personally or professionally is to get somebody with you that can coach you. And when I say coach, I don't necessarily mean someone that you're paying. I think coaches come in all forms, right? There are coaches everywhere in your life. A coach is essentially just someone who loves you and is interested in interested in seeing you meet the goal that you have for yourself. So, as I was thinking about who can help me with the particular goal that I have, I went through the same process that we just did before. I started with an acceptance criteria list for things that are important to me in a coach, people that are going to help me. The things that were important to me were somebody who understands why I'm here, they're excited about my goal, they're a good teacher, they have accountability methods, and they're pretty high touch, because if I'm being honest with myself, I'm kind of needy. So I needed all of these things. Flipped it on its head, and I came up with this other list. Don't want somebody that is going to talk to me about being in a figure competition. Not my cup of tea. I don't want someone who's going to be slow to respond, who's going to be sort of saccharine and too rah-rah cheerleader, and someone who's going to be inattentive. So that was the list that I came up with, but those are the things that are important to me personally. So now, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and think about what are the things that are important to you, and someone that is going to be helping you and encouraging you along your path. So go back. Going back. Any other room with our Thank you. Okay. Julie and your partner, do you mind? Oh, Pat, hey, how's it going? Do you guys mind sharing a little bit about some of the things that you guys talked about?
Sure.
Great.
Okay, so my coaching partner would be available to talk when I can, which is a real challenge. They'll hold me accountable. That ideally it would be somebody who knows my profession, because some of the issues are specific to it. Ideally they would have some skill in coaching, and they play an active role. What I wouldn't want is somebody who's really expensive, like my current coach. She's fantastic, but she's expensive as my car payment.
Oh, wow.
And somebody too busy to catch, and somebody who would be judgmental and critical.
Yeah. Pat, do you mind if I put you on the spot and ask you what's on your list?
I don't think I have much of a choice. But absolutely. So just the coach, right?
Yeah.
For me, it is someone who helps me as I explore new opportunities. So it just lets me solve it and explore and synthesize it in my own head. And then steps in. Someone who remains engaged in the narrative. So I don't have to catch up every time. Where do we start? Where are we now? Someone to understand the big picture and the evolution that I want to go on. Someone that can help me focus my efforts or suggest next steps if I'm stuck. So I want to be self-driven on my own. But where I get bogged down, just give me a little nudge or give me a direction so I can pursue it. Someone who appreciates integrity. So when I say I'm going to do something, they know and trust that I will do it and do it to the full extent that we agreed to. Something that I don't really appreciate is someone who's rigid in process. It either is or it isn't. So words that I don't like are don't, can't, always, and never. Someone who just tells me a fix. And someone who's long-winded, I do appreciate a little bit of brevity.
Awesome. Those are really, really excellent lists. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so now, we did that. Now, what do we have? We've got a goal that is really well understood. What did we do next? Somebody remind me. I actually am blanking right now. Pick my programming. Thank you. I understand what I actually need to help me get on track and start attacking this challenge. I have somebody who cares about me, who is ready to help me along this journey. So now I'm gonna go do the work. That's it. I just go do the thing, right? Yep. Easy peasy. No, it's not easy peasy. That's the hardest part. So this was the thing that was probably the most challenging when setting out onto this journey, because as I've found many times in my personal and professional life, people have a lot of ideas about how different things should be done. I gave this example earlier in the week when I was doing a training in Portland, but I was recently trying to do a puzzle with someone for the first time. I probably haven't done a puzzle since I was like 12. And I have a really specific way of doing a puzzle, which is I put the outside together, and then I maybe get a little weird and organize the pieces by color, and then I put the inside together. Yeah. The person that I was doing that puzzle with wanted to start from the inside, just anywhere where they found a bunch of pieces that fit together, and then work their way out. However that seemed to happen, and I had a meltdown. I was having a really hard time. But when I looked back on it, it was a really great learning moment for me, because putting that puzzle together is literally the same task. We're both going to get to the same place, but we have exceptionally different ways of getting there. So it was super important for me to make sure that as I was working with my coach, I developed a shared understanding of exactly how I was going to get this work done. So we came up with some simple guidelines. Who's going to do the work? Me. This is not a team sport. It's just going to be me working on this stuff. What am I going to be doing? The 3 major lifts in powerlifting. This is the part where I teach you a little bit about powerlifting, but don't get intimidated. It's not super important. The 3 major lifts are squats, bench presses, and deadlifts. With some accessories. Don't even worry about accessories. They're just smaller movements that help you get better at doing those bigger movements. Where am I going to do that work? At any gym with the appropriate equipment. This was really helpful to me because not every gym came standard with the things that I actually needed to get the job done. So I needed to make sure that the gym that I had a membership to was going to have the equipment that I needed. This struck a chord with me because I spend a lot of time thinking about environment when I'm working and when I'm coaching teams. Just figuring out how to make simple spaces work so that it's conducive for people to collaborate with each other in ways that they like collaborating. So that was a connection that I made there. When am I going to do this work? 3 to 4 times a week. That might sound like a lot, but at this point in my life, I was already going to the gym probably 5 days a week, so it wasn't that big of a stretch for me. However, if I was someone that was not going to the gym ever, 3 to 4 days a week would have felt impossible. It would have felt scary. Or maybe I would have been excited, I do it for a week or two, and then I'm exhausted because I've gone from 0 to 100. So it was important that my coach and I agreed on this particular frequency because she was meeting me where I already was. She wasn't asking me to do something that I wasn't already doing. And then this last one, how are we going to do this work? I'm going to follow a weekly plan that's generated after my coach and I review what happened the previous week and figure out what we learned. This one it was the biggest no-brainer for me as somebody who works with teams all the time, leads retros all the time, and has been working in an Agile way for the last few years, because all it is inspecting and adapting, right? I'm not going to think that I can walk into the gym next week and lift twice as much as I could this week, because that would be impossible. I need to make sure that I'm taking into account what I was capable of last week and being reasonable about the expectations that I have for myself going forward. So, back to you guys, your turn. Work with your coaches and start filling in the who, what, where, when, how of your particular plan. How are you going to actually execute on this thing that you want to do? I'll give you a few minutes. Excellent, thank you. Okay, Julie, what do you got?
Okay, so, do the work. So me, I'm doing it. My what is, first I'll do all my marketing doc preparations, my resume, all that stuff. I'll do 4 information interviews with business intelligence experts to understand the business landscape. Develop my target company list.
I'm going to go like this, just so the front.
Okay. And then where, home, or wherever necessary to meet with networkers. When 4 days per week, a 1-hour time box each time. And how, based on a plan I'll make, I'll have a set of work streams, and I'll be very clear on what is the next action, physical action for each work stream.
Excellent, that sounds like a great plan. Pat, you're off the hook in the interest of time. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we have an execution plan. So we're going to start doing the work. Excellent. Step 5, retrospect all the damn time. Retrospectives should not be new to people in this room. I mean, maybe it is. If you're new to Agile, then forgive me. I don't mean to make assumptions about you. But if you have been doing retrospectives as part of your Agilist world, this should be a no-brainer. I have been working primarily with Scrum for most of the time I've been an Agilist, so I got very much in the mindset of, you retrospect at the end of every couple of weeks, and that's just how I did things. 452. Any guesses as to what that number might represent?
Your bench press.
Oh my God, I would kid. No, it would not be here. I would be off doing protein shakes or something. I don't know. Any other guesses?
These many retrospectives you did so far?
Say it again?
You did 452 retrospectives so far.
Yes, 452 retrospectives so far in the form of videos on my phone right now of me lifting things. And I'm an old millennial, so when my coach was like, hey, I'm going to need you to video record your lifts and send them to me, I was like, great, got it, no problem. And then she said something that horrified me, which was, yeah, send them to me at the end of the week, but after you do every lift, can you watch yourself and start learning how to critique yourself so that every time you're lifting, you're getting better as you're doing it. And I was appalled, just absolutely appalled, because I don't know if any of you have had the experience of watching yourself do anything before, but it's terrifying and terrible most of the time. Especially when you're doing something that you're not very good at, it's even worse. So this one was actually really, really hard for me. And as you might imagine, as someone who's doing a talk about continuous improvement, I love retrospectives. But retrospecting on myself, really, really challenging at first. What I have found now is that this is the strongest tool that I have in order to make myself better in the moment, right? Because I am not giving myself any space between when I'm doing the thing and when I'm trying again. I'm watching it immediately, I'm learning right away, and I am critiquing myself so that the next time I do it, it's better. If I was waiting until the end of the week to watch all those videos or to wait for the feedback from my coach, there's so much that would have been lost because I'm not gonna remember what I did on Monday at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, yeah, sure, whatever you say, that sounds great, I'll work on that next time. So I say this just to encourage you all to not just wait for the moments that you might have already laid out within your working cadence. If you're working in sprints, maybe you're waiting at the end of a week, at the end of 2 weeks, maybe you're waiting at the end of a month. Find ways to, as often as possible, incorporate retrospectives when it's appropriate to do so, right? Sometimes there are conversations that require, space and time for the team, maybe a closed door, whatever it is. This is not to say that you should do real-time retrospectives for everything, but I would encourage you to think about doing it more frequently than you already are. I'm going to ask you to hold questions until the end just because I'm running a little slow on time. I'm so sorry. Okay, so retrospectives. If you're not super familiar with retrospectives, I just wanted to throw out an option for all of you, which is kind of my favorite, because this one is really quick and easy for me, especially because this is a retrospective that I'm usually doing by myself. It's the stuff that was awesome, high five, good job, go me, and then the things that I would change, things that need improving for the next time. So when I'm lifting, I now, at this point, have an understanding of what my proper form should be for all of those lifts. And so when I'm watching these videos, I start by looking for the good things, right? Always start positive if you can. So let's say I hit a personal record of a 495-pound bench, which would blow my mind. Maybe my squat depth was awesome, and maybe I kept a really strong, good point of focus. Good, okay. Now, what are the things that could be improved upon the next time I'm doing that lift in just a few moments? Maybe I needed more back tension, maybe my feet should have been closer together, or maybe I needed to think about keeping my chest wide when I was at the bottom. All of these things, just, little cues for me to think about as I'm moving forward into my next iteration, my next set. So I know that we have not had an opportunity to actually go out and try the things that we've been talking about yet, but I'm wondering if I can ask you all in the time that we have to think about when you've thought about this challenge or when you've tried to make some progress against the challenge that you came up with in the past, what are the things that you're already doing well, right? If there's anything that you're already doing well that you've already tried that's working for you, try and capture that in the little high five section. And get really honest with yourself and think about, are there things that I'm doing that are holding me back? Or simple things that I could maybe make minor tweaks to that would help me improve. I'm not going to give you a ton of time for this. We'll see probably just 2 minutes, and you can do this individually. Okay, we're nearing the end, home stretch. So this is the final step. Keep showing up. It's the final step, it's the hardest step, and I wish I could tell you that I had some magical solutions, some words of wisdom. As Julie was just describing, we as people sometimes have this habit of ignoring the things that we know that we should be doing and just moving on, and that's fine. And I'm sorry to say there is no sort of like magic pill to keep you motivated, and you will run out of motivation. So what I found to be most helpful when I find myself in positions of feeling like I don't want to go, I don't want to do this, I'm tired, I'm bored, I don't want any more, is a few things. So first thing is I check back in with that high level motivation, right? What was the thing that brought me here in the first place? So for me, this was Krav Maga. I want to pass this Krav Maga test in 2019. And I sit down and I think, all right, is that still the most important thing to me right now? Yes or no? If it's yes, then I move on to the next part. it was yes. So the next part was, is the thing that I'm doing actually helping me? Was my goal to get so strong, the strongest that I could possibly be, the right implementation solution? Is that, am I progressing? So I took some time and I got some feedback from all of the trainers at my studio, and all the feedback that I got was, yeah, we've noticed a marked difference in your performance, you're doing awesome, keep up the good work. Okay, final step, and this is why I really, really, really love the idea of having coaches around you and in your lives wherever you can find them, was checking back in with my coach and just being really honest and saying, hey, my motivation this week has been in the trash and I need help in figuring out how to get excited about this again. And that conversation ended up being the most helpful because she then turned around and said, okay, great, we're not gonna do any of the things that you've done this entire week. We're gonna do brand new stuff so that you're learning new things and that you have new things to get excited about. She's got different techniques to help keep you motivated. And so these sound really simple, they sound like no-brainers, but by constantly going through this process, whenever I find myself in low moments of low motivation, I find this to be super helpful. Because if I ever get to this point and I realize, you know what, it's not that important to me. The original motivation that I had, the original goal that I had, actually isn't the most important thing for me right now, I can move on. And that's fine. I just put it down, I walk away from it, not a big deal. It is okay. In fact, it's great if your priorities are changing. It's just important to know and recognize when they're changing. So you're not devoting time to things that no longer matter to you. So, you don't have to do that right now. There's actually no U-turn right there, your turn right there. Quick couple of things. Is it working? Should you listen to anything that I've had to say for the last hour? Maybe. So my level 2 test is coming up on Friday, May 17th. It was supposed to be earlier in the year, and then the date got moved out. So because I'm a crazy person and like to be busy, I signed up for a powerlifting meet instead when the level 2 test was supposed to be. If you're metrics driven, data driven, when I first started lifting, those were my lifts. So my squat was at 115, this is in pounds. 115 pounds, my bench was at 70 pounds, and my deadlift was at 145 pounds. And this is where I am now. So yeah, stick to it. Whatever it is, whatever plan you came up with, go ahead and stick to it. And, oh no, wait, that's what your turn was. Guys, I'm sorry, I don't know my own presentation. So your turn was to work with your accountability buddy, the person that's been coaching you for the last few minutes, and come up with a check-in point, right? So they're gonna help you be the ones to check in the next time to make sure that you've stuck to your plan, that you're gonna do the thing that you said you were gonna do. So right now, exchange information, figure out when you're going to check in next and what you guys are going to talk about. And then once you're done with that, we're going to open it up for questions. Great. Okay. All right. So that's it. As you can see, again, it's just 6 steps. Identify your goal, pick a program, get a coach because it's super important and really helpful. Do the work, retrospect, and keep showing up. These are all things that you already know how to do. These are things that you're already doing that you're probably telling other people to do. It's just about figuring out how to apply it in this way so that you're getting value out of it and you're able to use these things to tackle the challenges that actually mean the most to you. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions now. Does that work? Yeah? Questions? Any questions? That's awesome. I taught you everything you need to know. Okay, great. Oh, we have a question over there. Okay, great.
Great talk. So I just want to know, have you applied this methodology at work also, or is this more of a personal thing?
Yes. So I'm starting to apply it at work. If you've read anything about Athena Health lately, there's interesting stuff happening in our company. So it's been a little difficult to get some traction in and to get people excited about continuous improvement right now, but I'm definitely starting to pull it in as much as I possibly can. Yeah. Yeah. Nailed it.
The retrospecting all the time, so on your, the powerlifting, it's after each movie, after each video. Would the equivalent in a professional situation be like each day of the sprint, or maybe every couple of hours in the sprint?
Great question.
That often?
Great question. So maybe not that often. What I try and go for is if you encounter a situation where basically most of us recognize when something is going really, really right, or maybe something's going not quite so right. And what I'm trying to encourage people to do is, if what you're experiencing is safe enough to talk about in the moment without it being too big of a deal, try and have that conversation right then, right? Just call an audible. Like, hey, so we just had, John and I used to be on the same team. John, in that meeting that we just had, what I was experiencing was that I felt like I was having difficulty getting my opinion across to you because you and Cassie were really excited. Cassie was also on that team. Because you and Cassie were really excited about something that you were discussing, and I just don't feel like I was heard. What can I do in the next time we have that interaction to help that situation? You don't have to answer that question. But that, just something like that, right? And the onus is kind of on the person who's noticing it, and you have to have, I think, a pretty high level of psychological safety with the people that you're working with. So I don't necessarily know that that's something that can happen immediately or right away, but it's something to work towards. Other questions?
Hi, Lizette.
Hi.
So, just so everybody knows, it turns out we're doing an experiment tonight. We have some people from Portland maybe
Hi, Portland.
attending. Yeah, and one of them has a question. The question is about the outline of that process that you shared with us.
Yeah.
Have you used it with the team during a sprint retrospective? Or what do you think would happen if you tried that with the team as the outline for their retrospective?
I'm currently working with a team that I'm really hoping is going to let me try that with them. My theory is that, where this framework came from was because I have been coaching a lot of really awesome teams that have great discussions in their retrospectives, but then what will happen is they just come up with too many ideas, too many things that they're excited about and they want to change. And then the doing the actual work is where it becomes difficult. So I'm hoping that by getting them to think about it a little more analytically, and by keeping it feeling pretty lightweight, that I'll be able to help them get some traction there. Thanks. Portland, are you enjoying Restaurant Week? It's Restaurant Week there if you didn't know.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. What was that restaurant? 20 Milk Street? So good. Other questions? That sounds like a no. So I'm going to say thank you and have a great night and turn it back over.